It's your girl Naja here, and I'm back with another video. Sorry if I sound tired, drained. I'm all those things, okay? It's raining here. Let me put on my hoodie. There we go. No, because my part is actually like looking good. There we go. So today is going to be a story time. It is a rainy, gloomy ass day or whatever, and you know, I'm in my feelings, so I'm going to be talking about my past. And this is gonna be all the time where I lived in the hood. Yeah. So if you guys are expecting this video to be like super sappy and sad and shit, it's not going to be, but it's also not going to be like comedic and funny. I just don't want this to be like a sap story. I'm not the only bitch that fucking lived in the hood. Like, it's not the end of the world if you live in the fucking hood, okay? It's just for me, I'm not going to be talking about everything that happened at this point in my life because I'm just not comfortable with putting stuff like that on the internet. But yeah, if you guys are wondering why I'm a little bit while I'm talking about it, it's because there's more stuff that went on in this time of my life that I don't feel comfortable talking about. So it's not like I'm trying to be like, woe is me, I lived in the hood. I'm just making like a, you know, a disclaimer before anybody in the comments tries to be like, well, I lived in the hood and you being drama now. Like, you get what I'm saying? So disclaimer. If you like my channel, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up. I really would appreciate that, so this video can show up in somebody's recommended. And yeah, subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. I'm usually a little bit more crazy. I'm just very tired right now. So yeah, I'm just gonna get right on into it. So I moved to Florida when I was 7 years old, and I moved from Westchester, New York, okay? And my mom was actually wanting to move to a different state for a change in our scenery and our life because she had some things going on with my dad or whatever, and she just wanted to move away as far away as she could, I guess. And she actually went down to Jackson. Like, okay, so what she did was she looked for an apartment first or whatever, signed the lease, XYZ, and then moved to Florida and like was working and raising enough money before she could have us sent down to Jacksonville. So like, you know, she was working to get us furniture and beds and clothes and stuff like that before we went down there. Like, she just didn't want to struggle with us in Florida. So when my mom was looking for an apartment, she didn't like she knew people in Jacksonville, and I can't really talk too much on this because I don't really know, because if you guys watch my videos, you know my mom and I really don't like talk like that, so I don't really know like for sure if she knew anybody down here that could tell her about the area she was about to move into or what. But I feel like whoever she was cool with, because I knew she did have a friend down here because he's actually the person that picked my brother and I up from the airport when we finally got to Jacksonville. He probably told her that the south side is a good side of town, because that's just what people think when you're in Jacksonville and you hear about the south side. You think like, oh, well, y'all are rich, you live by the town center. Well, the town center wasn't even built back then, but you get what I'm saying. Like, you guys are on the good side of town, but there are some parts on the south side of Jacksonville that aren't so great. And so I'm pretty sure somebody told her like, we'll just move on the south side, and she probably saw online that there was a cheap place on the south side and just moved. And you know how these apartment websites will be. They'll make that shit look so great when it's really not. So, you know, my mom moved down there and she got everything together. My brother and I moved down there. And I remember the first day that we moved down there, I was playing on the patio with my brother. And it didn't even dawn on me that we were in the hood. Like, it really didn't. Because where I lived in New York, I lived with my grandma and she lived in the burbs. But if you went down the street, you'd be like on Ferris Avenue. And that wasn't a posh ass nothing, okay? Like, that would be considered the hood or whatever. And I had a lot of family there and I had friends on Ferris, so I didn't really see it as the hood. And plus, I wasn't living in that environment. I was just going over there to stay with my dad or like play with my cousins or see relatives and stuff, you know. So when we did move down to Jacksonville, we were in that environment. I didn't really view it as like the hood. But now that I'm older and I've been living here for fucking over 10 years, like I've even like, for my own healing, I've even gone back to that neighborhood. But I'm not gonna sidetrack. I'm gonna stick to the story. So yeah, the first day that we even moved there, I remember my brother and I flew down there by ourselves. And as I've said in other videos, like, my brother and I were basically grew up in two different places. Like we went to school and lived in Jacksonville, Florida, and then every single summer we would fly up to New York, and my uncle would take care of us during the summers, and we would just all be in New York. So my brother and I flew alone a lot, and that was our first time ever flying by ourselves as unaccompanied minors. And yeah, my mom picked us up in the airport, blah blah blah, whatever. So first day there, I'm on the patio and stuff, and I'm playing with my bike, and then somebody came up to me who was also a kid, and you know, was just doing normal kid shit, like asking me about my bike, blah blah blah. So I made my first friend or whatever. Really wish I wouldn't have. Yeah, that friend ended up having an older sister and had a whole bunch of older siblings, and her older sister ended up babysitting me and stuff, because like my mom was like super young. Like my mom was only like 25 at the time, and like when you're 25, like you want to be 25, like, and she had 2 kids at the time, and she wanted to go out, she wanted to go to the club, she wanted to do this, she wanted to do that. So I was left with my babysitter a lot, like a lot. So I was practically in the hood by myself, taking care of my brother, because I did not trust my babysitter. I was just team me and my brother. Like I didn't fuck with those people at all. So you know, we're getting more accustomed to it, but I just remember the neighborhood just being very dirty. There was always trash everywhere. There was a cemetery right behind our neighborhood as well, and like the gate would just be open and there was trash everywhere. And I remember my friends and I, who were also kids, like we're all kids, like I had to have been like 7, 8 years old. We're all little ass kids. We would walk through the gate and go through the cemetery, and the cemetery would just not be well kept. Like there would be like boxes poking out of the dirt, there would be clothes and stuff everywhere. There were a lot of like drug addicts in my neighborhood, and like just looking back, I feel like maybe they went back to go dig some stuff up to steal like jewelry or stuff like that, because it always looked like somebody had just recently dug something up and put it back. Like it just looked very unkept. So my mom wasn't there to tell me like, hey, don't mess with the fucking cemetery, because she was never there. She was either at work, or she was hanging out with her friends, or she was out of town with her friends. Like she really wasn't like looking after us. Like she just had other people looking after us in this shitty ass environment. So yeah, there would be stuff like that going on. We would always be in the cemetery fucking with shit, or just stupid stuff. And I remember every once in a while my grandma and her boyfriend would actually come down to Florida to visit us, and you know, give us new stuff, and we would put like our bikes on the patio or shit like that, and it would get stolen like the next day. Like I would put because it was an open patio, there was no screen, there was no door, there was nothing. So I'll put my bike on the patio, she'll be stolen the next fucking day, and then maybe a week later I see a grown-ass man riding my pink bike with tassels on it. Like what the fuck. In the front of the neighborhood there was like a chicken spot, and we would all walk to the chicken spot. We had no money. Like my mom would leave my babysitter money to feed me, and she would literally take me somewhere and give me like $1 fry or something, and then keep the rest of the money for herself. So I didn't really have any money to buy food, so I would go around my mom's house and like collect quarters and shit, and we would go and it would add up, and then we would go to the chicken spot. The chicken spot was like literally on the side of the fucking road, right next to a gas station. And I just remember like weird ass creepy dudes used to yell at me and my friends, and like we are little girls and these are grown ass men like yelling at us trying to get our attention. Like awful. And it's crazy because my mom was paying my babysitter to like watch me, but she was never there. She would just take my mom's money and like go chill with her boyfriend in the house and tell me and my friend, who was her little sister, to go play outside or whatever, right? So just stuff like that. I remember seeing like syringes and shit on the floor in the neighborhood and stuff like that. And the first time I ever saw it is because my brother tried to pick one up, because my brother was also with us all the time, and like my brother had to be carried the majority of the time. I had to like carry my brother around because he was only like 3 or 4 at the time, and he couldn't keep up with us when we were just walking all these random ass places. And I remember he tried to pick up a syringe, and I was just, all I saw was the needle. I didn't know like people use that for drugs, obviously. I was just a kid, but I was like, it has a needle on it, you're a little kid, don't touch that shit, right? And when I did see my mom afterwards, I told her about it, and she actually typed up a letter to the office. And I didn't find this letter until I was like 13, because we had the same computer from when we lived in this neighborhood until like we moved like maybe 2 times after that. We still had the same computer, and she actually gave me the computer so I could have it in my room so I could do my homework. And I was just going through the files and stuff, and I found a document like addressing to this neighborhood, and she was basically just going off on them. And she was just like, look, I have kids, you guys have syringes and needles all over, well, syringes are needles, but you guys have needles all over the place. You have little baggies with powders and shit all over the place. You guys have trash everywhere. It's not sanitary. Like, you guys really need to get your shit together type shit. There was another time where my grandma had given me a book to collect quarters, and I wanted to, it was like a book to collect quarters, and you would get a quarter from each state and you would just collect all of them, right? So I was collecting quarters, and you know, even when you're in a shitty environment, you, as kids, you just want to like make the best out of it. So me and my brother made our own clubhouse, because even though my brother and I had friends, like, we were very like us or whatever. That's why it's so weird, because like how we are now, and I know it's because he was so young, he doesn't really remember much, but back then, like, we were like this because I was so protective of him because of certain things going on at the time. I was just very protective of him. So we made our own little clubhouse, and it was in like some bushes. Like, it was not even like it was a hood clubhouse, okay? We didn't have no wood, no nothing. Like, if it rained, everything in the clubhouse was getting wet. And we made a lot of clubhouses when we were younger, but this is like our first clubhouse that we made. And I put my book of quarters in there. Like, I stashed my book of quarters, and I don't know why I did it. I really don't, because it happened so long ago. And to be completely honest with you guys, I didn't even really start thinking in depth about this time in my life until I turned around 20, 21, trying to like dissect some of my behaviors and stuff stemming from some shit that happened in that point. But I can't even tell you why I put the book of quarters in the bushes in that type of neighborhood. Sure enough, I go back the next day, the book is there, all the quarters are gone. Somebody done bucked my shit, right? There were people who would steal tires and rims off of cars all the time. And yeah, it was a hot ass mess. My mom didn't even have a car back then, so it never happened to us, because she lived in New York her whole life. She didn't need to learn how to drive. She didn't learn how to drive until we moved out of the hood. Then she learned how to drive. But yeah, she didn't even have a car back then. Like, my mom was walking to work or taking the bus to work. Like, we didn't really have much. Like, it was cheaper to live down there than it was in New York, but you need a car to live down here. And I remember she told me, or my grandma told me, that she was walking to work one day and she like stepped in a big ass anthill and like a stick went up in her, I don't know, it was fucking gross. But I think that was her epiphany, like, I need to get a license. So yeah, one of her friends taught her how to drive, and then she ended up getting her license. But we didn't have a car when we lived in the hood, so none of our shit got bugged. But people would steal stuff inside of people's cars. People would steal tires off of people's cars. Yeah, that was a fucking mess. One of my neighbors used to smoke cocaine all the fucking time, and like, I didn't even know what that was until my mom. And I don't know, maybe I just don't want anybody to bash my mom or anything, because we've talked about this before. And she did explain to me how she was young and irresponsible, and I just genuinely think she didn't think that I would remember anything, because my brother, he doesn't remember shit. But she just admitted to me, like, she was young and irresponsible, and she just wasn't in the right place to do what she needed to do. I remember I was stepping outside of my into the hallway, and my neighbors, it was these 2 tall black dudes, and they were smoking a J, but it smelled like burning plastic. And I was like, what the fuck is that? And my mom was like, oh, they're smoking a boom J or whatever. I didn't know what that meant until I got into like high school, what a boom J was, because once somebody else said that they were smoking a boom, and then I like flashed back to that thing, that moment, and I was like, oh, so yeah, I don't need to be hitting that J because it has cocaine in it. Like, so our neighbors would be on that shit, and they would be serving out their apartment too. My brother and I were left, like I said, like how my babysitter would do that floss shit. Like, she would act like she was watching us, but she really wasn't watching us type shit. And I was home alone with my brother, and my brother was hungry. And my brother was only like 3 or 4. He was hungry, and he put a brick of ramen, just a brick of ramen, in a bowl and then put it in the microwave, no water, no nothing, and then put it on there for like maybe 20 minutes, and our whole kitchen like just caught on fire, and we had to call the fire department and stuff. It was a fucking mess. They had to do renovations to our freaking we'll fix up the kitchen. No renovations, they just put it to the basic ass shit, but you know, they had to clean up our spot. So I don't remember where we went though while they were doing that. I want to say we were at my babysitter's house while they were doing those renovations, because later on down the line something happened to my babysitter's family's house, and my mom ended up taking those people in, and that shit just pissed me the fuck off for more reasons that I can't really get into. But yeah, my mom ended up moving those fucking stupid ass people into my fucking house. I learned how to swim there. I didn't know how to swim. I got put into swimming classes when I was, I want to say like 4 or 5, when I lived in New York, and I just couldn't, I was scared of the water. But when you're in Florida, you gotta learn how to sink or swim. So I learned how to swim, and yeah, that was cool. My brother didn't learn how to swim though until he was like, I don't know, maybe like 11, 12. He was just not a water baby. But yeah, I learned how to swim in that neighborhood too. I got into my first fight in that neighborhood. You had to fight. You had to fight, especially because everybody thought I talked funny. I didn't look like anybody there, and so yeah, I got into a couple fights, but I got to my first fight there. I also had some other babysitters that I actually liked a lot. I really liked them a lot. It was 2 girls, and then they had a younger sister who had she was mentally challenged, and the mentally challenged sister was like 16, but she had like the mental capacity of like a 7-8-year-old. So I played with her a lot. Like, we got along a lot, and I really did like her. And they would always do my hair. Like, it was like a mission at least like 2 times a week to like try to get my hair straight, because my hair used to be so long when I was a kid. So they would try to blow dry my hair. They hot comb my hair. I remember one of them burnt the fuck out of my ear. We would watch 106 in Park, and yeah, they were really cool, but they ended up moving. But I really liked when my mom had them babysit me, because I don't know, it was just so much fun, and like it would just be an experiment of how long I could go outside before my hair like poofs up or whatever. So like they would do my hair and I would look so cute, and they'll send a picture to my mom, and then I'll walk outside and then my hair will just poof, like out of nowhere. But yeah, that's one of like the positive memories I have from that point in my life. And I remember like whenever people used to pick on their younger sister that I used to hang out with, I would always have to fight, because I don't know, I just didn't want anybody picking on her. So I would always have to fight of like, don't talk about her, like that's not cool type shit. I moved out of that neighborhood when I was 9 years old, and we moved to the burbs, and it was a definite culture shock, I want to say. Only because like I expected all Floridians to act the way that the ones I was around acted, if that makes any sense. I'm not trying to be ignorant, y'all. This is like 7-year-old, this is 8-9-year-old Dodger. Like, I'm not trying to be ignorant, but like just going back and forth between 2 states for 3 years, and your only perception of how people act is that. And then going to school, oh my god, the school was hood as fuck too. They ended up closing the school and then turning it into like a special ed program school or whatever. But before it was like a K through 5 school. But it was just so bad, and so much shit kept happening, they ended up closing it. Same thing with the neighborhood I used to live in. It was just so bad that they had to, it got bought out and they changed the name or whatever. Yeah, so when I did move to the burbs, and I ended up going to an academy school after that. Like, my mom got a better job, and she was like, look, now I know the area, I know where the fuck we're about to move, like, we're not about to stay here no more, too much fucked up shit has been going on, right? I don't know why, but she cut off my babysitter, and that just was like the best thing that could have happened to me at that time. From then forward, like, that was like the point of my life where I was just like, you know, side-eyeing my mom and shit. So that's why I'm glad, like, as adults we ended up talking about it, because like for a long time I side-eyed my mom. But yeah, so we moved out the hood. We got to a nice little suburban apartments. You know, that shit had a tennis court, a pool. We didn't have, all we had was a fucking dirty ass pool at the hood complex. Yeah, the new place had a tennis court, a pool, a playground, you know, it was in a good area. My school, I got to go to an academy school, and I just got to, you know, meet different types of people, and I just felt like I could fit in a little bit more where I was at, because I feel like when I did live in the hood, I was trying to be somebody that I really wasn't, just so that people wouldn't think I was soft, or like people wouldn't try to fuck with me, if that makes any sense. So yeah, that was my experience living in the hood. Every hood is different. That's just little things that I can remember. Sorry, it's not like a full drawn out story. It's just like different chunks of the things that I can remember. Again, I'm not saying anything bad about people who do live in the hood, and not every hood is the same, because like I said, my dad's hood, where I would be around when I was a kid, it was very like different, very families and different generations of families living there. It was just a impoverished area, if that makes any sense. But this place was just like, nobody gave a fuck. Shit was dirty. Kids were just running around by themselves around syringes and shit. Like, it was just a whole different type of wave. So I'm not trying to say, like, you know, try to be negative towards anything. I'm just telling you guys my experience. As always, not trying to offend anybody, but somebody's always going to find something to be offended about. So be it. But yeah, that's about it. I just wanted to vent. So yeah, here I am venting. And I know I usually don't get this personal with you guys, so it is kind of weird. I usually tell you guys like the funny misfortunes of my life that I can make a joke out of, but I'm still working on making a joke out of this. But I just don't find anything funny about this point in my life. And again, I'm not telling you guys everything, so you guys probably think that this is just pussy as fuck, but it is what it is. So yeah, let me know in the comments below if you guys had any bad experiences living in the hood or whatever, or what it was like for you growing up in the hood, if you did grow up in the hood. And yeah, I will see you guys next time. Bye.